welcome to another episode of the Swords and Sports Podcast. One man's journey to read 52 fantasy books in 52 weeks and create 52 podcasts documenting the experience. I've said that so many times at this point. If I'm on my deathbed and they're like, what are your last words so that we can write them on your gravestone, I'd be like, 52 fantasy books in 52 weeks and 52 podcasts documenting the experience. They'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is a hospital. I'm your host, Mike Mogues, the man embarking on this journey. If you haven't got that yet, this week I'm joined by the wildest of wild boys out there, the Suge Knight of swearing, the Salvatore Dali of dirty words, the one, the only, David, or depending on who you ask, Dave Wragg, to talk about his incredible book, The Blackhawks. The interview is coming up after this book details. Now, I know you may be wondering, why is he wearing a tuxedo jacket on a podcast with a pink flamingo shirt underneath? And if you aren't wondering that, it's because you're not watching on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Swords and Sports, so go subscribe to that, because I can see the views on that, and let me tell you, they're lacking. So the answer to why I'm wearing this tuxedo is twofold. One, because I was on the floor in this studio slash office slash basically a junk room at this point. And two, I'm getting married this weekend. I'm not saying that for extra clout. I mean, I am saying that for extra, clout. But I knowingly ordered the wrong tuxedo because I had taken so long to order the correct tuxedo that my fiance, former co-host of the Swords and Sports Podcast in year one of its first iteration, I knew it was the wrong tuxedo because we're going to be married at this point if she sees this. Oh, no, shit. This comes out Thursday. Well, she doesn't watch it anyway. And I ordered one that was similar to it. So the one that we had picked out was sold out because I had waited too long. And so I ordered one that I thought was similar, and I thought she's not going to remember what we picked out. Well, then I got this one, and let me tell you, it's ugly. And it does not look like the tuxedo that I'm supposed to be wearing. It's got white dots on it that I'm not sure what they are. They might be Braille. And I'm not happy with it. What does this have to do with fantasy books? It has nothing to do with it. But it was on the floor, and I thought, let me get one use out of this. So shout out to Black Tux. I did get the right tux. As a quick self-promo, you can find this podcast on all your podcast listening platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google. If you'd be so kind as to leave a review or to subscribe to any one of those channels, I'd prefer the YouTube channel because that feels like where I could get the most validation. Do that, please. Also, I saw it on the website today, and I'm officially, or one of the official podcasters for Self-Published Fantasy Month. What month is that? That month is going to be September, so that's coming up next week. I'm so excited to be a part of this incredible team. You can check out all the details on selfpubfantasymonth.com. I don't think that's the correct URL, but look it up. You'll probably find it. They got a cool logo. And I'll be doing 5 interviews with 5 self-published fantasy authors that'll be featured both on the normal Swords and Sports channel and on their website, I believe. I don't know. Shout out to Justine from Whispers and Wonders blog for putting that together. Week 1 is going to be the incredible Jordan Loyal Short, so stay tuned for that. If you want to know more about what's going to be on the show, feel free to follow me at Twitter or Instagram. On Instagram, you'll get small clips of the episodes, like a minute long, of some of the funnier stuff. And then on Twitter, you'll get, all the news about the show. Is that enough of the details? I mean, I promise there's an interview coming up. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it is. The book is The Blackhawks. The author is David Wragg. And let me tell you, this was one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. And I think I say that about all of them, but I'm not even kidding this time. The series is The Articles of Faith, Book 1. And it was published on October 3rd, 2019, so one day after my birthday. Nobody gives a shit about that, but you know what? There it is. When I was originally talking to him, one of the things he said was, he was like, he's got commitments. He's like work, pets, children, writing, missions from God, etc. I never clarified what that mission from God was, and I would say that's a missed opportunity in the interview, but I didn't miss many other opportunities in this interview because he was down to play fucking ball. It was 429 pages. The publisher is Harper Voyager. The books in the series are The Blackhawks and The Righteous. And let me tell you, this podcast contains spoilers. It contains a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't read The Blackhawks by David Wragg yet, consider this your warning. The interview contains spoilers. Without further ado, the giant himself, David Wragg. It's another week of the Swords and Sports podcast. Dave has lifted his fist. He's ready to get this thing going. I'm joined by two-time Grammy Award-winning author, which is an award he found out he won a month ago and had no idea. Dave, depending on who you ask, David Wragg, author of The Blackhawks, book 1 of the Articles of Faith, duology, or whatever you want to call it. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
You know what? I don't believe you. When you ran into Foreign Secretary David Miliband, did either of you knock each other down?
This story is spread. I managed not to. I did literally physically walk into the man, but he had the presence of mind to sort of bounce off me, and we both stepped to one side. And there was an element of I'm just some git who works in the basement, and that's the actual Foreign Secretary, and I have just sort of physically interposed myself into him. That's probably a career-limiting maneuver. Fortunately, there's nothing memorable about me whatsoever. I'm one of the beigest humans on earth, so nothing ever came of it. But yeah, I did not knock him down like a skittle, thank God.
I think if you knocked him down, you might be the Foreign Secretary.
Yeah, going by today's political standards, you might be right.
It's what we call in the biz, a biz I'm not in, a power move. You know what's not a power move?
Tell me.
Taking too much food from the salad bar and getting in trouble. I mean, what are you loading up on salad?
You've done your research. I was getting married. That's my excuse. It was in the run up to my wedding, which was more than 12 years ago now. So I was a lot thinner then. And yeah, I was.
You're looking pretty slim.
Yeah, I was trying to lose weight for my wedding. And so I got really into eating salads. And the trouble with eating salad is that it's not really food. So I just started to put more and more and more to try and make it as if I was actually eating a meal, to the extent, yes, I then got told off by the woman at the checkout and said she'd charge me for 2 portions if I did that again. I mean, and that would have cost me like 2 lots of £2.60, which in that time was worth a lot of money. So I learned my lesson.
I was going to say, I thought like HR brought you in. I was about to say, how did that conversation start? So Dave, we have we have video of you at the salad bar.
You salad hoovering bastard, please leave some for the civil servants. Again, I was not a civil servant. I was a consultant brought in to do something utterly unimportant that I'm sure I was excellent value for money for. And yeah, while there, I was abusing the privileges of the civil servants by monstering their salad bar. I mean, it's shameful, really. Sorry.
I can't see how you didn't get brought on full time for this.
Yes. Yeah, we like the way you eat kale. Please join us.
And that's when it wasn't
just a little higher than that.
That's when it wasn't cool to do.
No. Some would argue it still isn't.
This is the #1 vegan podcast. You might have just offended people.
I'm so sorry, vegans. Please don't feebly shake your fists at me.
How annoying is it to share a name with another author? My initial idea for this was to do the entire interview pretending you were the other guy.
Yes, the poor Sunday Telegraph journalist and extremely distinguished author of books on engineering and war and aviation. Yeah, this poor guy, he's David W. Wragg. He's had a long and very richly appreciated career, and then what's happened is over the last couple of years I've just appeared and absolutely wrecked his SEO. So now if anyone
it's
Googles
crazy
him, it's just me all the way, except Google being Google, it's managed to munge our records together. So if you look me up, or indeed him up, you get me with his bio claiming that I was born in 1946 or something, and had a 30-year career working in civil aviation, and then it's got my books. And then some of his books as well, as if to prove that, the Gestalt entity that combines the pair of us is actually capable of multitudes. So, other David Wragg, I'm very sorry. I actually suggested to the publishers, Mia, should I use like an initial? Should I use a pseudonym? Because, he was already out there. And they said, nah, be fine. No one's going to confuse you.
Except, the number one search engine in the world
that
has
human beings aren't going to confuse us, sure. But yeah, it turns out that Google may not quite have the wit that it's credited with.
Now, do you think Harper Voyager had any conversation and said we should just pitch him as the reincarnation? Is he dead?
I mean, I hope not. He's not dead, the poor guy.
I think that would be even better.
I do feel bad. I have sort of contemplated in the past, like sending him some kind of message apologizing for what I've done, and then thinking, well, in his shoes, what would I do if I received said message? And if I'm in my 70s and some little twerp sends me an email from, the new David Wragg on the block in whatever it is, 30 years time, I'm just gonna feebly shake my fist like a vegan. There's nothing I can do. Sorry,
honestly.
vegans.
Oh man, they're gonna be real mad, all one of them. You should send a letter to him and be like, hey, not to be rude, but have you considered changing your name? It's really getting in the way of my SEO.
Oh dear, that would not go down well, I'm sure.
Have the Chicago Blackhawks of the NHL reached out thanking you for writing a book about them?
Mysteriously not. I'm very disappointed. I mean, I think they are at least Blackhawks, all one word, a bit like the helicopter. Oh, where's that? Where's that Black Hawk? I forget now. Yes, generally,
I'll just agree with you. I don't know.
Search for my book. You will get quite a lot of stuff about military helicopters that may or may not crash regularly in Somalia. Quite a lot about hockey teams. I think there's another Blackhawks hockey team as well. There's the Chicago one. There might be one in Canada, which is a real country.
Yeah, you made that up.
So we get around. But I mean, if you search for my name, the book title, probably the word book as well, and maybe, a phrase like pig fucker, you're bound to find it eventually.
I wanted to say, I thought it was intentional that you stole an author's name and then you should have called the book Black Hawk Down, and then you would have just had all the search results.
Sort of. I think. I mean, it's quite hard. There are no new titles left, basically. That's not true, actually. The books come out on a regular basis, and I think that's a brilliant title. How did you do that? In my defense, that's not the title I gave the book. When I submitted the draft, it was called Articles of
Pig
Faith.
Fucker.
Well, yeah, Articles of Faith, or one pick of Pig Fucker's Journey to Save the Planet, etc. Yeah, so the publisher... got a twist ending. That's a pig joke for anyone who's playing along at home. The book was renamed by the publisher, and it was better for it. I think it's a better title, although it does have people reading it saying, how come the Blackhawks don't turn up until page 80 when you title the book that? To which my defense is, I didn't do it. I mean, okay, I wrote the thing, so arguably it is my fault, but look over there, a vegan. Not a real one.
I think you sound like a master of just passing the buck. Yeah. And I appreciate that. I think that's a very important skill in modern workforce.
I said earlier, I was working as a consultant in the Foreign Office. So one of the things you learn in consultancy fairly early on is that you never accept responsibility for anything. I mean, that's like a vital skill to be you're familiar with Teflon, the stuff they coat frying pans with, the non-stick. So you basically want that on every shoulder. Somebody tries to put anything on you, off it goes. Slides right off.
Slid your way right into a publishing deal.
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, again, the beigest man in publishing, just sort of sliding right in. Hello, I am, white, middle-aged, middle class, completely unremarkable. And they're like, yeah, fine. You can go on the pile with the others.
You should have pitched yourself as the beige Stephen Arian. You guys are about the same height, right?
That's true, we are. I only found this out the other day. I had no idea that Stephen was so tall, which is to say a normal height for a man. He is 6'5". I am 6'6". So inevitably, we will both be crushed by Jay Kristoff, who is 6'8". Yeah.
But you do have the inch on him. And let me tell you.
So it's a lot of reach, but you know, with these tendons.
Okay, so I was going through your Twitter. You had the worst publication date celebrations ever. The worst. Hanging the laundry, taking the bins out, contemplating the futility of existence, which I actually liked.
I mean, that's just a fairly regular kind of Thursday thing for me. Yes, it would be fair to say that publication day this year was a little muted compared with the first book. And I mean, there are reasons for that. And I have to credit my amazing wife who absolutely went above and beyond and made a publishing party for me. But that, of course, didn't start till the evening. So I did just spend the day sort of wandering around the house, like, was it like the meme of oh God, Pablo Escobar staring at his empty pool, that kind of thing. It's like, truly, this is the greatest day of my life. I mean, that's one of the weird things about publication day, because although it's this enormous date in the calendar, is that, you know, the official release date, the reality is quite a lot of people have already read the book because it goes out early to reviewers, to other writers, all the rest of it. So you've already had that sort of drip feed of feedback. You've already, you know, having written the thing, it's been edited, it's been round and round, you know, the thing's gone backwards and forwards, you've had people pushing and pulling, etc. And then on publication day, everyone is allowed to buy their copy, but I mean, the book's like 600 pages long. They're not going to read it that day. You're not going to get bombarded with people. You know, it's like releasing an album where people can sit down, put the headphones on, 40 minutes later, they're like, wow, that was amazing. Quick tweet. This is, you know, yay, my copy's arrived. I'm looking forward to reading that. Well, I don't know, maybe about Christmas. So you don't have that kind of wave of immediate feedback. You just kind of wait for people to say, oh yeah, your book's arrived. And then maybe they'll read it someday. But, you know, there's no direct kind of link between the two.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that.
It doesn't have, you know, like you picture the moment with the doors opening and the crowds rushing in to sweep the book off the shelves, and then they'll take it home, put it on the shelf or on the stack of teetering TBRs, and then just they'll get to it eventually if you're lucky. I mean, I've got books on the shelf upstairs that I bought 4 years ago that are like, I am going to read that. Just
you'll get to it, I'm sure.
Just not yet. One of the punishments for being stupid enough to write is that I regularly have to read stuff I wouldn't otherwise choose to read. I don't mean books that publishers send me. Lol, no, they're all brilliant. No, it's research books and research books, textbooks, various treatises about this kind of thing. And also I need to read sort of books that can evoke a certain mood or a certain voice or a certain setting. And I have to say, I've been reading one for the last, I think it's about 3 months, and I hate it, but I have to finish it.
Let's shout that book out.
Well, it's a classic Western from, I don't know, about 1920s. It's called The Virginian by Owen Wister. And it's like a foundational Western. It's almost contemporaneous. I think he started writing it like in 1900, having visited Wyoming in the 1880s. So it's like, this is a guy who visited the West when it was the Wild West, and then wrote his experiences about this character that he invented. Except Wister himself was an absolute fool, and his repugnant attitudes are front and center throughout this book. So I am reading it with gritted teeth, and I cannot wait for it to be over. Links in the bio
on this. I'm sure everybody's gonna go pick that up.
I mean, it's a classic of literature. You could say that for it, but yeah, I hate the man and all he stands for. He's long dead. Yeah.
Don't ask Dave to blurb your book.
That's it. Anyone else who wants me to blurb their book, I hate you and all you stand for. I mean, that would actually be quite an endorsement, I think, for some people.
Do you think you would have had a better celebration if Harper Voyager gave you a big enough advance to buy a dryer? It would have knocked out half the chores.
Now, it's not about having the dryer. It's about taking advantage of good weather to hang the washing out. And, you know, we get summer for like 6-7 days of a year in this country. So you've really got to make the most of them.
You just stack it up like for months, it piles up, and then one day you're like, this is the day.
This is, I mean, I'm busting out the shirt game again. It's a shame that most people will be listening to this because they're missing another one of my spectacular summer shirts, which can be worn again for between 6 and 7 days a year.
This is where I plug the YouTube channel. Check it out. He looks great.
I really do, if quite beige.
So the idea for this book came from a drunk dream. What should people be drinking if they want to have dreams that turn into successful books?
Was I drunk? It was definitely a dream. The dream itself was extremely trippy and made no inherent sense, but all the best dreams do. It's one of the weird things about when you see dreams fictionalized on screen and they're coherent and, you know,
I never got that.
I must be dreaming, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, the only reason that dreams work at all for our brains is that we're constantly filling the gaps in. You have that sort of assumed knowledge. You see something go past and your brain immediately supplies a narrative for, you know, of course the airship is in town today. Like, yeah, thanks brain, otherwise that would have really freaked me out. Like, yeah. So yes, the dream that I had featured, funnily enough, a sort of slow moving airship thing, which I knew was immensely dangerous, coming in over a coastline. And I remember watching it bob past and being terrified. And the other half of it was knowledge of 3 brothers, 3 princes, but one of them was a secret. And it, all tied into the same dream. And that's kind of it. So in terms of what should you be drinking? I have no idea. I can't even remember under what circumstances I had that, but that would have been going back. It was before I was married that I had that. So that's 2009, maybe. So back then I was probably drinking quite a lot of scotch. So there you go. Single malt though. Don't get the blend.
2 things there. One, he implied he stopped dreaming after he got married.
I mean, yeah, that's normal, right? Well, your dreams end the minute you say I do. Yeah, that's
right.
legal.
Yeah, I mean, mine's coming up. So there's the end of freedom.
Big day.
But I'm not spending my time eating salad. Second thing is, if you thought after listening to that you were going to have a magical dream that was going to turn into a book, that dream made no fucking sense compared to the book. So that's not going to happen for you.
But that's the great skill of writing. It's to take nonsense ideas and turn them into vaguely plausible text. And that's literally it. I mean, somebody said writing's easy. You just sit down and you type one word after another until it's finished, right? I can't remember whose quote that is. The mechanics of the thing, piece of piss.
That's Voltaire's quote. I've got a few questions about your childhood, and and it's
what did you discover?
Did your middle school teacher hate you for making him read 10 pages when the assignment was only 3 pages?
Well, yeah. I mean, he gave me a higher mark than I had previously had in his class, but it was like grudgingly high. This was a teacher who he marked out of 20. I don't know why. Maybe out of 10 was too gauche.
Which is every teacher's system, you know?
Yeah. So it was out of 20. And for him, if you got 12 out of 20, you'd done okay. That was like an acceptable mark. Less than 12, you disappointed.
God,
12 was like, that's the grade. If you got 13, that was good. That's actually like, okay, we're in. And he did half marks as well. So 13 and a half was what I got for that 10 pager. So I was like, that's actually pretty good. And then the next week, whenever it was, the next time we did a composition exercise and I did the 3-page essay, he gave me 16 out of 20, which was like a record high. I don't think anyone got a 16 that year.
You're a legend.
I could not shake the sense that he was giving me 16 because it was shorter than the last one.
That was 100% what happened. And I'm pretty sure you called that Spring in the Woods. So can I have a copy?
Right. You know what? I was going to say, I doubt that a copy exists still in the world, but my mother has a tendency to keep things for me. And I can't help wondering if there's a box file somewhere like in her attic that contains all of my English essays from when I was 17. God, no, it wouldn't be 17. That would have been GCSE. So I'd have been 15 or 16. So it's not like my writing's matured at all since then, because indeed I haven't.
Well, then let's go back a few years when you decided in your, I think it's your year 7 art class to completely ignore the assignment of drawing a seashell and instead just drawing a snail with a bunch of rockets and racing stripes.
It was a snail shell. It was indeed a snail shell. My God, yeah, that would have been, I would have been maybe 12 when I did that. Yeah, and it was my inability to take anything seriously that got me into a lot of trouble. So it was just like art class. Here's an empty snail shell, sketch it true to life. And of course, I couldn't leave the bloody thing alone. So I actually drew the snail in there and gave him little goggles and then drew a little jet engine on the back and go faster stripes and flames coming out the back. And then, yes, I got what is technically termed a massive bollocking for that.
Now, she was correct, though. I mean,
I look back on it now and you're like, yeah, that, you got to deal with that little greasy twat who just refuses to do what he's told and goes off script. Like, yeah, I probably would have lost my temper with him as well. But I don't know, it's different when you're 12 and you've got the mind of a 9-year-old. And now I'm 42 and I've got the mind of a 12-year-old. So, that's maturing. Progress. Yeah.
And what's crazy is you were 6'1" when this happened.
I didn't actually get around to growing until like my mid to late teens. It was a bit of a shock for everyone, I think.
There's still hope.
Yeah, so don't rule yourself out.
Now, what I'm trying to paint a picture of is a kid who refused to follow directions. But actually, you won a Radio 1 award as a student.
I was nominated.
Oh, you were nominated.
Didn't win.
Sorry. That was a lead-in for you to admit you didn't win it.
Yeah, you've laid the trap there. Yeah. Yes, I'm a big winner. I'm not. No. When I was at university, some friends and I got very into student radio, although it should be admitted that the reason we got into student radio was that there are a load of really pretty girls who work there and were doing like the freshers fair thing, handing out, it was called Burn FM. I went to University of Birmingham. Burn FM represent. And they made it look incredibly glamorous. So we all jumped into that and then actually found that we really liked doing radio shows, doing incredibly stupid radio shows and moving from the actual live broadcast stuff into, and you'll like this, scripted, amusing comedy sketches that are pre-recorded, pre-written, and then we supplied all our own sound effects. I've still got somewhere like a box full of CDs from the BBC sound effects library that you could buy that were full of things like, applause in a church or a spring or an explosion, the sound of gunfire, people cheering, that kind of thing. You just had to go to like track 72 and press play and then hit record on the computer and get the sound effect in there. Yeah, it was quite antiquated for the time. Everything had to go on mini disc. Remember those? So that was exciting to find there was something that we actually really enjoyed doing at university, as opposed to everything else. And we thought we were so good that we entered ourselves into the National Student Radio Awards that were run by Radio 1. And we were good enough to be nominated, went to the awards ceremony, and then we did not win. And then one of my friends got very drunk and pushed a DJ into a door.
And I'm sure that ended up well.
Yeah, so
you really earned their respect with that move.
Another ignominious end to... But we didn't deserve to win. The people who won were much better than we were. But I look back at it now and I can't listen to any of it because it is absolute toilet humor, as you would expect from a bunch of white middle-class boys recording radio skits at the age of like 18 3/4. Just didn't know any better, thought they were funny. Whereas now, no change.
I'm still thinking those shows probably have more production value than this podcast. How many times do you think that guys go into a hobby for hot girls and don't have fun? Like, this just worked out for you. Like, I'm sure some dudes are like, crocheting looks awesome.
I have to say, it's an incredibly effective recruitment tactic for like the first week of university. If you just have a load of very chatty, very friendly girls wearing the t-shirts, you will attract a certain, but let's not discriminate. There should also be some extremely friendly, chatty boys in tight t-shirts to make sure everyone is fully represented. So that's honestly, my advice. That could have been you. Yeah, I do. I do own some tight t-shirts because it's not enough time at the salad bar.
You take note, companies. I don't think anyone's ever tried that strategy before. So that's called innovation.
Yeah.
What is the Czech pronunciation of pig fucker?
No. I have this on my shelf. I haven't got the books down. Yeah. I mean, I can show you what the words look like, but I cannot tell you how it sounds. I'm waiting for the Czech audiobook that will contain. But then I have to actually able to pick out which bit. I don't speak Czech, I'm afraid. I know some people who do, but they've been mysteriously reticent when it came to helping me find all the swears in the book. I have to say the Czech edition is magnificent. It's beautiful production. Like it's hardback's got all of the like embossed inlay on the inside cover. There's a picture of me on the back flap, which is terrifying. They shouldn't put that on. They'll put people off.
For those listening on just audio, he's grimacing and lying. No, I'm kidding. I saw it. It does look great. Do you think that it would be let's not call it a good idea, but an idea to just have someone record it in a different language that doesn't speak the language?
I mean, it's an idea. You're right. I know you like to pitch ideas on the podcast.
It's coming up. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, what is it they say? That there are no bad ideas, just bad people. So
dude, I'll do with that what I want. Well, I'm thinking I saw recently a fantasy author, someone had recorded the audiobook for his book, but like with no rights or anything, just like trying to make a quick buck on it. And I've seen this recently where people are just recording audiobooks like before the audiobook for the book is released. So people buy it. Wow. So why not?
That seems legally perilous, I would say.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely on the wrong side of the law there.
Yeah, that is I mean, that's the sort of thing that, again, it might seem like a good idea while you're doing it, and then you probably might end up in court and paying some quite serious fines. And maybe you'll be thinking, yeah, that wasn't such a good idea after all.
So if anyone listens to the Czech version of the audiobook and it's strangely sounds like the host of the Swords and Spoons podcast, I promise those two things are not connected.
I love it. I mean, I'd almost like to record my own audiobook, but I can't do all the accents, and that's the thing that really holds me back. I could not do Lemon justice, so
you have such a good voice for it, though.
Oh, I did win the Best Radio Voice Award at the Burn FM Awards in 1998. Was it 99? One of the two. Yes, 105.2 Burn FM. Doing all that.
A lot of radio awards for someone who went into writing.
Well, I mean, people used to say that I had the face for radio, and I know what they meant. But it turns out when you do stuff on the radio that you have to get people to approve it before it can be broadcast. In case you might have, what's the phrase, push the boundaries of taste and decency into realms that they do not deserve to be in. So the good thing about writing is that it's just you. Like, you sit down and you come up with the absolute nonsense in your brain, and then you just have to get it out of your brain and onto the keyboard, and then clean the keyboard up, obviously. But that it's a solitary action that doesn't depend on other people to be involved. You don't have to rely on other people to, if you're writing a screenplay or something, a screenplay is like the opening sentence of a conversation. If there's ever a film at the end of it, it will probably bear no resemblance to any screenplay you write. And similarly for radio, anything you write is going to have to be recorded, it's going to have to be produced, it's going to have to get edited, it's going to have to be, now sure, books get edited, but it's a far more sort of personal, intimate process. And obviously you can take the independent route and you can write a thing, declare yourself happy with it, and just put it up for sale. And some people like it, sure. The process of editing isn't about changing your beautiful vision, it's about making the book into the best version of the thing that you wanted to create. And I know that people can get really upset with editors when they say things like, how about instead of it ending like this, it ends like this, or how about this character just isn't in it at all? Because that's quite, mental gymnastics are required if you've got a very fixed idea of what your story is.
Right.
For somebody to go like, what if that person wasn't in it? And you're like, but in scene 3, there's 2 people, and if one of them's gone, who's the other one talking to? So they've got some logistical issues to get your head around. But I don't know. Somebody said it's a bit like taking a car engine apart and then trying to put it back together again with the same bits but in a different order. So, puzzle solving. That's why it's writing for me. It's because I don't have to involve anybody else until I'm happy that the thing is what I want it to be. And then they can turn up and go, hey, that thing that you've just spent a year and a half on, it's a bit shit, isn't it? And I can go, yes, but help me make it better. And that's where we go from there. At least that's the idea.
Well, then let's talk about that finished product, because similar to Chell, Dave is trying to let us know that he has no friends. And that's why he chooses solitary hobby.
No, I do know. I have some people that I met once. That counts, right?
I can't tell if these are landing or this is going to be the last time we speak. All right, let's get into this book talk. All these weirdos keep talking about a storm coming, but it doesn't seem like it seems like the weather's pretty good throughout the book.
Yeah. So this is actually another. It's a victim of editing. Sadly, there were repeated references all the way through the first book to figures seen in the distance, like worshipping a little stump or something, and then in the second book there was a whole major plot thread where Chell got to meet some of these wild preachers and realized that it all came back to this mad woman that he met at the start. And there's still some stuff that comes to a head towards the end of the second book where there are repercussions, but they are sort of slightly more vague and slightly more indirect than they were going to be in the original one. So yeah, the notion of the storm is coming. I know there was actually a literal storm at one point as well, and that got
snowstorm, right?
Removed. Or did it? Does the storm still happen? I can't remember now. In the second book anyway. Maybe it was a storm and then it got changed. Wow. I only finished editing it like 6 months ago and I've already forgotten nearly everything. I've forgotten what wasn't in it, what is in it.
I'm always surprised by how many writers just have no idea what's in the book.
It's a bit of one of the problems is the different versions of it. It's,
right.
You wrote the thing. Yeah, I wrote that book. I wrote the first draft in 2016, and it's then it wasn't really edited in earnest until 2020, and then that, of course, everything got blown out. So we finished editing it to 2021, and there were quite a lot of updates and changes. And so, yeah, in terms of what's definitely in and what's definitely not in, I'm a bit hazy on it. I thought I'd be less hazy than this, but yeah.
4 years is a long time. I had hair like you 4 years ago.
Speaking of lustrous and golden,
it is fantastic. You definitely got a hair for video, if not a face for radio. Speaking of editor cuts,
yes.
When are you releasing the uncut version of the final Chell Rennick pigfucker confrontation?
Oh, well, that's an interesting one. Yeah. So if you believe my editor, then she cut out 52 uses of the phrase pigfucker from the first book. That's not true. It was barely 12. But there was a scene that was supposed to be an echo of the final scene where Chell basically stood up and called Rennick pigfucker over and over again, and every time he did, Rennick punched him in the face and knocked him down, and then he stood up again and kept doing it. So I still have that scene somewhere. That's another one that was probably cut both for reasons of pacing and taste of decency. So I think by the time you get to the end, there's one final instance right at the end of book 2, which is just the callback. It was all about, again, I wrote the 2 books back to back. There's a load of stuff in the first book that is called back at the end of the second book. And one of the real challenges of the editing process, is certainly for the first one, was trying to keep stuff in that didn't actually pay off in book 1, and then keep the stuff in book 2 that was there to pay off the stuff in book 1. And I wasn't always successful, I've got to say. So it's just fine. I've got all the loose ends all piled up, and they're all going to go into something else. So you will get all of your answers. You get some of your answers. There will be a few answers.
There'll be no answers, is what it sounded like.
Answers may yet come.
Answers to questions no one asked.
Was it
a good prank to agree to not kill Paolo's family and then go ahead and kill all of them like a big gotcha?
Well, what do you think an evil villain would do? Like you
I
can't
thought
trust. You can't trust
that
a
a
word they
villain
say.
move? I thought that was like, a prankster move. Like, haha. You thought,
But
not exactly.
his whole point was that he made the choice very clear. You tell him what he needs to know, and then there will be survivors. If you don't tell him, then there won't be survivors. Of course, the flip side is that what he wants to know is where everyone is, so he can murder them. So it's like, but if I tell you, you'll murder them, and if I don't tell you, you'll murder everybody else. So there's always going to be a lot of murdering. It's a tough choice. I honestly don't know which way
I mean,
I'd
he
go.
walked right into that. You got to take some responsibility at a certain point. Did during Chell and Rennick's question off, did Chell ever consider asking like a disarming question, like, why have you guys been following me? Like, what's your favorite color?
I don't think it's quite his style. Chell is motivated primarily by a sense of burning injustice
And getting beat up.
Yeah, well, primarily the injustice is to him. Like he is the one who feels like he's being wronged at all times. That is a reason that the second book should really be called The Self-Righteous, because it's about Chell. But it takes everything very personally, and not just the fact that people keep punching him in the face, obviously justifiably, but also everything that's going wrong and everything that other people are doing wrong in his eyes. He believes to be, a direct assault on his values and his understanding of how the world should be. So obviously he and Rennick have a lot to talk about, but getting to the bottom of it all was uppermost in his mind, to the extent that just actually trying to get to know people, be friendly, learn to communicate with other human beings in a way that isn't just a sort of direct question and answer, like what can you do for me kind of way. It's just not something he knows how to do.
I don't know. I think it always helps to ask a nice question.
I think you're right there. I mean, he could learn a lot from you.
I don't know about these are nice questions. How much blow has Foss done that his nose is completely flat?
That's not blow. That is repeated blows to the face, which is again something he's a little indicator of what's in store for Chell. That's based on a bloke, funnily enough, I was at school with. He was a couple of years older than me. I've no idea what he'd done to his nose, but I remember him once leaning forward and just like doing that, and his whole nose went flat. It was like,
that's what he did too.
Well, he would have been about 16 at the time, so I think he'd had to pack an awful lot in to have done that, done your septum in with some banging rails. But who am I to say? It was the 90s, man.
Listen, where there's a will, there's a way. How many hells are there?
Point of contention. I've got a grid somewhere that has all the different characters and how many hells they maintain that there are. So for some it's 5, for some it's 9, for some it's 12. Occasionally someone will chuck in like a 7 here and there just to see who's paying attention. But it's up for debate, because I think it's Foss who says it's all down to the question of classification. You've got your super hells, you've got your sort of your macro, your micro, and then it's about administration after that. Where are you funneling people down what tubes, so to speak?
Okay. Does Chell really wants a fucking animal, right? Like Tarful nailed that.
Well, I mean, this is the joy of spending time around squaddies, isn't it? So grunts, I think, as they're called in the US Army. So yeah, privates. Or that means something else. I used to work at a shipping company long ago, and there were a few ex-soldiers there, and they were an absolute fountain of spectacular swearing. And a lot of it, essentially, depending on sort of where you go and like the roads you travel, a lot of it eventually boils down to sex with animals.
Right.
It's the go-to insult for anyone, depending on where they're from, generally will lead into what kind of animal you assume that they are sleeping with. And I mean, there's the old gag about the bloke who goes out to the remote sheep farm and they all get terribly lonely. And he says, what do you guys do for companionship? And they all say, we just go with one of the sheep. And like, are you mad? Like, and eventually he's there long enough until finally he says, all right, I'll go out with you. And they go out on the van and they pull up in the sheep field. All the sheep start trotting off into the distance. And the the bloke he's with jumps out, sets off at an absolute sprint. And the guy's like, why are you running? There's hundreds of them. The guy shouts back, you don't want to get an ugly one. So this is the kind of level that you're dealing with.
You're made for this show.
It just, it's like osmosis, you know, it sort of seeps in through the pores until eventually you realize that this has become intrinsic to, you know, well, if you're going to insult someone, of course you're going to allude to interspecies relationships. Of course you are. And so, yeah, you start with pig fucking and then you just kind of work your way across the farmyard from there, really. I mean, one thing that's missing is the context, of course, because we're talking a fantasy world. You can't point at someone and say, oh, well, they're from the north, therefore they're going to be into sheep. They're from the west, therefore they're going to be into cows. Because that stuff's, yeah, it's meaningless to the reader, that those nuances are going to be lost. And I think my editor might have told me that it was probably too much detail to go into when I hand over the dictionary of bestiality that I've been compiling about where each... Yeah.
I mean, that's the type of research that I appreciate. Is pig fucking a gateway to bigger animals? Like, do you start with a pig and then you just like, you know, it's like marijuana is a gateway drug?
At this point, I start on the advice of my counsel, say no comment.
This is the perfect time to ask the one serious question on this podcast. One of the goals of this podcast, besides trying to never get anybody back for a return interview, is to kind of break the traditional stereotypical view of what fantasy books are and what fantasy readers are. You know, the kind of sword and slayer farm boy gets the magic powers, has relations with all the beautiful women who are so helpless. Everybody's white, read by, you know, neckbeards in their mom's basement, you know, drinking monsters and playing video games and stuff all day, which is fun in the right context.
Oh, yeah.
What about your books breaks that traditional mold and brings fantasy to either to a general audience or breaks those boundaries?
Well, I've always thought of the books as a subversion of the classical fantasy. I mean, I've said this countless times, like the amount of absolutely sort of middle of the road white fantasy stuff I read growing up was enormous. I read lots of other more interesting stuff as well. But again, much like the osmosis of animal insults, ingested a huge amount of kind of what a fantasy story should be. And so the Black Hawks was always going to follow the shape of it. But I just was going to kind of ping around with all of the kind of the structures along the way. So in terms of what does it do? Well, you do have the farm boy narrative, except the farm boy is actually kind of a nobleman. It's just that he's an outsider and he's from very minor noble stuff. And the upshot is that he has no friends because he's too elevated for any of the normal people, the working people, the guards, the servants, any of the arts. Like, he's not one of them. And he's also a scumbag to all of the actual nobles who think of him as like a little Johnny foreigner upstart from the corner, and they don't want anything to do with him. So he just exists outside. So that's why at the beginning, when Healy, the guardsman, takes an interest in him, he's like, oh, I've got a friend. So he's a git. And his journey is that he starts off a sort of chippy, surly, self-obsessed and grumpy young man with no fighting skills and no particular experience of the world. And by the end of the second book, he is all of those things still, but he's at least got some life experience. So he doesn't learn to fight in a way that allows him to turn the tide of battle on his own. He doesn't actually become big and strong. He gets his shoulder dislocated relatively early on and never really recovers. He doesn't get the girl. He doesn't learn sort of the meaning of friendship or anything. He has to make hard decisions. He has to learn hard lessons, but he tries at least to make other people do the right thing and understand what the right thing is, even while his own understanding of what the right thing might be is being shifted by everything he's going through. So, you know, there's all of that guff. And then on the other side, in terms of, sort of breaking the mold, there's probably one thing I'd say. It's just the number of female characters in it compared to the stuff that I read. Generally, the women I read in those sort of books fantasy books as teenagers were princesses. Yeah, I mean, occasionally wizards, or like the Aes Sedai in bloody Wheel of Time. Oh God, pulling on their braids and folding their arms under their breasts,
yeah,
and all
let's not
that.
go down that rabbit hole.
Disapproving. That stuff. I mean, it's still in there. I cannot shake it off 20 years later. 25, 30. Jesus. Thanks, Robert Jordan. So, I mean, yeah, obviously there was loads of other stuff that I read, and it wasn't anywhere near sort of as one note as that. But just in terms of having a collection of professional people going about their professional lives with society collapsing around them and making them 50% men, 50% women, and it not being an issue, not gender politics sort of left at the door, if you like. I don't know if you spotted this, but a friend of mine pointed out, he said, it's less noticeable in the first book, but in the second book, just about every authority figure that they encounter is female. And I'm like, no, that can't be right. And if you include the ones that got edited out as well, okay, maybe.
And this all stemmed from the art teacher who yelled at you.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, I'm cowed by powerful women, apparently. Honestly, I don't know what it is. I mean, I look to women to be my authority figures, I guess. Well, I mean, anyone who knows my wife, yep, that checks.
Shout out to your wife. That's a great answer. I really appreciate it. Normally the follow-up for that is, you have possibly one of the greatest dick joke books of all time. And I highlighted some of my favorites. Is it okay if we go through them together?
Please. Yes. Tell me how diseased my brain is.
I mean, the curse words, everybody talks about the swear words. And don't get me wrong, I've got some of those too. But this one legitimately made me laugh. Forget it. We're alive and back on track, despite enough cock-ups to leave a convent smiling.
Yeah, I like that one. There's another one. There's a line that Rennick uses in the second book. Something about I'm happy as a nun doing the weeding in the cucumber patch or something.
Yeah. Grandfather's withered ball sack. That girl would fuck a fence post if you drew a cock on it.
Yeah, that one I like.
That one is fantastic.
Also, the Chell's immediate reaction of like, oh, would she really? Well, I mean, shut up.
I'm 6'5". Oh, no.
Yeah, I could be a teenager again.
All right, and then I'll end it with Dallin wasn't smiling, but neither did he look displeased. Loveless, my merry belle, are you so anxious to feel the pounding of my weapon? He waggled the staff to hammer home his innuendo. Loveless pursed her lips. All I see is a little prick with a little stick, and I have little interest in child's games.
Yes. Yes, she's good. I like that. I mean, it's nice. You have to have characters who've got a bit of chat to them, and then you can, ping them against each other. It's no good having it one-sided. Like, that one's the witty character, and will make fun of other people. But also, you can't have everybody engaging in like rapid-fire banter like an episode of The West Wing, because that just kind of wears people out.
But when it hits, it hits. You also have an all-time, I used to do a segment on this show called Fantasy Filth, which are made-up curse words. And your book is obviously very well known for this. But I just wanted to highlight some good ones in a similar vein of the dick jokes. This one is just disgusting, which made me laugh. God's fucking cockpuss. Shepherd's crotch, Dallin, love was called. He's not one of your cock piglets.
There's a notion.
Cloth-eared fuck stool.
That's a particular favorite.
Shitty ball cakes. That one gets a lot of love. I've seen that people quoting that one a lot.
That is absolutely lemon. Yeah.
Ancestors piss wine, pretty good. And then we've got Shepherd's shit stack, which is just alliteration professionalism. I'm throwing all the segments in here at the end, so let's do this. You already alluded to it. I'm going to pitch in novella idea.
Okay.
This one is one of my favorite. It's a play on Weekend at Bernie's. It's called Long Weekend at Vistrelar. The king's dead. What's Vassett to do? Follow this hilarious story of one church leader convincing a kingdom that the leader's still alive, using hilarious ploys like the old string on the hand, the puppeteer.
You know what? This is what my wife said to me when she read the first book. She was like, "Oh, I love it. I love the fact you've done Weekend at Bernie's at the end." And I went, "What? What are you talking about?" She went, with the dead king. Yeah, yeah. Like, oh my God, I've done Weekend at Bernie's. Oh, it was, she loved that
I'm
film.
the first person that's asked you that.
Yeah, you're certainly the first person who's not my wife, which is important.
Well, that puts me in good company.
It does.
Was Tarful's dad a better father alive or as a chemical corpse?
Oh, low blow. No. Yeah. He was a dreadful father. He was also quite a dreadful king. So, it's best not mourn.
All right. Has there ever been a group more committed to not gossiping than the Blackhawks?
See, I like this. This is their own version of like Omerta, except instead of dobbing each other in for the various crimes they've committed, instead they won't tell people's personal stories. They won't. It's gossip. They won't give background on each other to nervous, inquiring people. It's very much like, if you want to know about me, you come to me. Which,
right.
Again, in Whisper's case, being somebody who communicates primarily with sign language that Cheryl doesn't understand.
My other question with that is she faking it?
No, she very much is not. But she could be, and he'd have no way of knowing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This book has a lot of incredible actors, including one person who should have went into acting. Now, do you think Corville could have been the greatest actor of all time if you didn't get into the whole fratricide / tyranny thing?
Yeah, drawn to other passions like, committing murder and seizing power. He did well. I mean, although I think it was helped by the fact that he faked a massive head injury. So in the same way that, people can, like in feebly scripted dramas, blame amnesia for differences in behavior, like he could do much the same. As Tarful complains about how, he always used to get on with Mendel before the accident, and afterwards he found him really cold and brooding and all the rest of it. It's like, yeah, because it wasn't the same guy. But I mean, how thick do you have to be to not be able to tell one twin brother from another? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe you can get away with that. And especially if you're a royal family and you don't see each other very much, because everyone knows royal families are weird, right? And
right.
Dispatched to go and live on the other side of the kingdom just to get you out of the place because you're stinking the room up, that kind of thing. So, yeah. If you're crown prince, people have to kind of take you seriously. So, yeah, he's being weird again. Well, after the accident, he's been weird a lot. Yeah, all right, we'll just put up with it. Whereas if he'd just been dung sweeper number 3 and he'd started carrying on, then I don't think people would give him the time of day.
I'm just saying, I think how annoying must have it been to constantly hear, "Oh, it's so nice that the hot one's alive." And he's like, well, you fuckers don't even know the difference.
You know what? I bet that fed a lot into it. Like, just him going, "I'm going to murder all of you." Oh, isn't it good that Corville was a bit of a prick, wasn't he? Isn't it great that he's dead? Oh, you're on my list. Yeah, I mean, that was a man who could bear many grudges simultaneously.
And I think I'll end this on this question. Was this all a long con by Tarful to bang Chell's sister?
Oh my God, you've seen the outline for book 3. It would give him an enormous amount of credit, I think. The whole point of Tarful is that he is like, what was the term we used? He's like cookie dough. He's raw cookie dough. He has never been used. He's never done anything. He's never had to think or like even run.
Right.
He's just like this little sort of soft, doughy thing that was moved over there because it was inconvenient and feels very sorry for itself, despite the fact that he's a prince. and he has servants and people like, you know, serving hand and foot. I can't even waiting on him hand and foot. That's the term. But how tough could your life be? And yet he's all morose. I'm like, oh, woe is me. He's the only person more pathetic and more miserable than Chell, who has very little reason to feel sorry for himself other than all the ones that he's convinced are the most meaningful reasons in the world. So, yeah, Tarffel's capable of nothing at the start of the book other than squealing and flapping his little pasty hands. He's the same color as me. But by the end, of course, he has been, for want of a better term, baked. He has been cooked. So there is, you know, the process, the crucible has formed something of him, and what has come out of the oven, you may or may not like, according to your tastes.
We'll find out. I mean,
that was
seriously,
a tortured metaphor. I'm so glad I call
that. So, I mean, bro, you're the prince. Like, just ask someone to teach you how to ride a fucking horse. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Where can people find you?
Right. On Twitter, it's Dave Wragg. My website is daveragg.com, and that's probably it. You'll find me out there. Don't forget, Rag is spelled with a W, W-R-A-G-G. Jesus, it's like that. I'll spend my entire life. No, it's a silent W. Shut up. D-A-V-E-W-R-A-G-G. Can't go wrong.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to having you back for the duology, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike. Good.
I don't know how you couldn't have had fun with that interview, because let me tell you, it was a ton of fun making it. Also, one of the things that continues to happen as I'm interviewing these authors is my downstairs neighbor is some kind of like wonder kid who has been just hammering away at the piano since we've moved in. She also sings. You know, like most kids are obsessed with YouTube or, you know, the TikTok or whatever the kids do. Not her. She's trying to be a child prodigy. And I appreciate the talent it takes to play the piano and sing. I have no talent when it comes to that stuff. But similar to watching minor league baseball, I don't enjoy it at the pro level. So I certainly don't enjoy it at the minor league level. But shout out to her. She's killing it. One day she's going to hear this, and I'm going to have to offer some apologies. But until that day, I'm not doing it. Books on the horizon. What's coming on next week is, I already mentioned, The Scald's Black Verse by Jordan. Loyal, short. One of the top 4 Jordans that have ever lived. After that, we've got We Men of Ash and Shadow by H.L. Tinsley. Super excited to get that one going. And after that, we've got A Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart. Stay tuned for that, because I have a feeling that one's going to be a ton of fun. And after that is The Kingdom of Liars by Nick Martel. You might be saying, that's not a self-published book. No, it isn't. But it is coming. So stay tuned, because that book is absolutely incredible. It's got a blurb from the king himself, Brando Sando, who, I've heard some interesting stories about him recently off air. And one day, I'm going to air them all out. No, I'm not. Without further ado, that's the end of the podcast, and that's not what I say. So keep on reading or something. Peace.